getting a notice on my Zoom saying this is live stream.
Yeah, maybe we're being recorded in live stream.
But yeah, we signed a contract at the time to say we were not allowed to talk about it or anything.
Okay, can you talk about it now?
We didn't know who was coming, and I heard the wardrobe lady go, "Well, we've got her size 12 heels." And I'm thinking, what woman wears size 12 heels?
We've got the tucking jock strap. Just get the one we use on Michelle. Just get the Michelle one and we'll use it. Okay, never mind.
I don't know. It seemed like being on that show for years with all those women getting all that attention. And, I think that's kind of what did it. I don't know, but, there was also a lot of kids there that were with their parents and they come and it was part of the show. And, I'm not, when you're that age, you're like, do they really know? Do they really, So that's an area. And now, I know that my daughter in school, they were going through sex education. Sex education was like 4 weeks of him, her pronouns. And I'm like, didn't they have to teach you anything about sex? Well, we haven't got to that bit,
Yeah, right, okay.
And they had this girl in class that she scratched somebody and hurt somebody. And they said, but she's a furry. She identifies as a furry. So you're not allowed to punish her because she's a furry. So she had these outbursts of, and I'm like, oh my God, if my kid came home and said they were a furry at 15 years old, so,
what does that mean, a furry?
A furry is somebody, am I the expert on this now? A furry is somebody who dresses up like a chipmunk or dresses up in the big, like a Disney costume or something.
No, it's actually a sexual thing where they dress up as cats and pamper each other and they call themselves a cat, That's sexual. They're not a him or a her. They're now
But actual furries are people who dress up like in the entire cat costume.
They dress up in the entire cat and then have sex, or they have petting and pampering, and I don't know. That's a whole weird. That's another strange universe.
And that's another strange universe indeed. And that's another reason why it's really interesting to see the revolution happening on the local level. I mean, the local level is because parents got to actually stay home with their kids, realizing they didn't like their kids very much, having to spend all the time with them, and the divorce rate went up 60%. Which means, well, I don't, men and women don't really like each other. They don't really want to spend time with each other. Their kids are really obnoxious, but they discovered what teachers were actually teaching their children. And this is why they're going after teachers and school board members and whatever else. So the revolution really has gotten down to the grassroots of people actually finding out the kind of, well, and again, it's not education. It's complete communization. It's socialization is what it is. It's not reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's, it's pronouns and whatever else. All right. So let's throw this up.
So what I was talking about was
finish your thought, please.
We have energy around our body. And so anything that we're dealing with, negative experiences that we have, and we know we all have it on some degree. But like Donna was saying, sometimes this manifests into something much bigger and stronger. And it starts out with, an issue that you have, an anger feeling that you have, hurt feeling, grief, pain, and that's in your body. And so if you're not releasing that and processing that and working on that, it can get stronger and stronger until it gets dense and actually can become a mass.
Well, that's what the same question I asked Donna, because you're a healer as well, Gail, and you've had access to some of the best healers on the planet. I mean, after you do a healing on somebody, let's say a woman, breast cancer, whatever, are there psychological, emotional changes that happen in the person after you do the healing? Or wait, here's my question. Or do they, let's say with, it didn't happen with me, but let's say Donna did this healing on me. I could just go back to being all pissed off at what was done to me and how unjust it was and whatever else. Now the whole thing was a frame job. Now, do you do healing on people and have them just go back to being pissed off and it's kind of weird? And the disease just comes back because it doesn't change their lives. It just, you know what I'm saying? It's
that's a big thing. And so often people show up and they're like, oh, I have this problem or that problem. It's like, you're a healer. Just do it. Just do me. Just heal me. Right? And you have to get to the cause of it, the root cause of it. So, you go to the doctor and you can have that cancer cut out. Well, great. You've taken away that physical part of it, but have you actually healed the energy part of it? And the same thing with energy healing, you can go back and you can heal it. But the reason that person had that health issue in the first place was this years and years of this emotion that, as you know, so certainly Donna was talking about some woman who is cheated on, happens a lot, you know. So a woman is cheated on, she feels betrayed, she feels that she's been abandoned, perhaps her father abandoned her. That's an energy. I often see it in the sacral chakra, in the ovaries and that area. And so that energy sits there. And then what happens is it actually, until they process it, because they're still, that comes up once in a while, they have not processed that, so they'll attract more of that. They'll attract another partner that's also going to cheat on them, and that keeps coming up, right? And so until you get rid of that energy, you keep actually attracting more of that, because it's the universe going, okay, you haven't stood up for yourself, you haven't worked this out, you haven't figured out what it is, and so we'll bring you another one, right? Because you didn't get it, right?
And then they don't want to take blame that maybe it's them, maybe it's her, not them, because it keeps happening, right? The person
is really cheating on them. The person really is being mean, or whatever they're doing. You know, they're actually, this person is doing that to them, but they're drawing that experience over and over because they're supposed to learn something. They're supposed to say, okay, I love myself. I'm not going to have this. I don't want that kind of partner. Whatever the lesson is, and it's different in all areas of our life. We just do this constantly. We attract things to us, and when it's our issue, it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up, and then that energy gets denser and denser. So at first you don't notice in your body, it's just energy in your body, and we all have it in all areas of our body. And then when it becomes stronger and stronger and it keeps coming up and you think about it more and more, it gets more physical, and this is where you get tumors and physical problems in your body. So when you remove that and you heal that, you've got to go back to that original feeling, that original thought.
Gail's going to have a workshop later today.
I'm going to be doing something similar. Yeah, I'm going to be teaching how to cut cords and you know, get rid of the attachments that people have put on you in cords. So it can be cords, it can be dense feelings and energy in there. So as a healer, you're going to remove that and go all the way back to the source. So they might come and say, hey, I have a cancerous lump, and you do the healing and the lump's gone, but you're going to make sure the energy is gone. And so what's really important is that the client gets it. The client understands why they've got it, because otherwise they're just going to go back to the same old pattern. So let's say it was because the guy cheated on them. You do the healing, they're now clear. They still got that energy. They still got that feeling. So when they think about that person, it comes back. And so that's why so often people will have a healing, or they'll have a Western medical, or even a spiritual healing, and they'll be completely healed. And then 6 months later, that same issue comes back. Why?
So here's okay, go ahead.
Because they never got to the root of why they didn't catch themselves. So you have to explain to them, get them to understand, oh, I'm doing this because of this first relationship. And if I don't fully heal that and release that, and then they got to catch themselves. As somebody else comes in, they got to catch themselves. Oh, I can't be thinking that way. Oh, yeah, that's another situation. And it does happen. And you just have to cancel it out.
So
say, okay,
here's a question. Here's a question for both Gail and Donna, and then we'll throw it back to Alan, Phil, and
we only
whatever.
have a half hour more.
What's that?
I said we have a half hour more.
Oh, okay. So quick question. Are you, as healers, interfering with karma? I mean, don't these people, I mean, I know Jesus did it where he healed thousands and thousands and thousands of people, but
Gail, Donna, and Bhavna, because all three of them do that.
Yeah, but again, are you interfering with karma? Is it that person's karma or dharma to get that disease and learn how to heal it and learn to do whatever? And you step in and say, "Okay, poof, it's gone." Does that interfere with the
I just
karma?
want to jump in, Sean, and say
please.
maybe the healers are part of that karma too. So you can.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good answer. Thank you, Alan.
Well, a person is
just real quick. Give me like a 15-second answer.
Yeah, I'm going with. Let me say something. Exactly what Gail was just saying. If the person is asking you for the healing,
okay,
then you can reverse it, transmute it.
So you have to have permission. In other words, you're saying to do.
They have to ask you. Asking you shall receive. So they have to ask
All
you.
three of them have done healings on my daughter.
What?
Sorry.
I said all three of them. Bhavna throughout Gail, Donna throughout my daughter while she was in a coma, and after, and even now, they've all been doing healings on her. So
yeah, but we worked with your
permission, or if someone else asks permission for them, if they can,
Yes, and so the fact that you asked permission to do it, Mark, then I mean that you wanted it, we were all going through you to help her.
Right.
Okay, Alan.
I actually work
yes.
directly. I
Go ahead.
actually work directly with the soul. So
Okay.
I ask your soul, because your soul is the one who's requesting. There are times when you might say it, I would like to get this clear, but when I go to your soul only shows me this is how much can be cleared. So we are just like an onion or a cabbage, you can say. We take out one layer at a time,
Right.
So it's very interesting with what Gail and Donna are speaking. It is connected with that, but more scientifically, if I have to explain what they are saying is, plants have a system to protect themselves. Okay, so if you eat a cabbage, before you eat, you take out that first layer, you wash it, you take out that first layer, throw it, and then you can cut and eat it, right? And that's how the cabbage protects itself from any kind of insect going in there. It has those layers. But as human beings, we don't have that. Our layers are basically all energetic. It's all made up of gas. We are a body made up of matter, solid, liquid, and gas. So gas is something you don't see, which is your energy field and your aura, which is around your body, but which is still made with your thoughts. Your body is the solid form of the matter. The blood flowing in your body is the liquid form of the matter. The oxygen you breathe in is the gas form in the body. Your thoughts are also the gas form, because whatever you're saying, do you see anywhere written on top of me or around me? No, that's just a thought which you are talking from here and thinking from here and talking from here. So it's coming out, but it's in the gas form, so nobody actually sees. So the same thought which you're thinking here can go out, right? Which nobody sees. Similarly, when we are interacting, the gas is always exchanging. There's always an exchange of energy moving around in the universe with every person. When you hug somebody, when you meet somebody, when you interact. Now we are more on Zoom, but we're still interacting. We can still think with everybody. So there's no time limit, or your thoughts can go as fast as the speed of light, or air. You can think of it. So when somebody hurts you or says something, which is, if I say to somebody, or somebody says to me, you are bad, or I'm not good. So the thought, you hear, you listen, you hear, you process it, and you take it in your body. So anything which is not in favor of what you say is right or wrong, it is decided by how you are brought up. So every person's right and wrong is very unique to them, and the community they are basically in and living. So nice. All the rules they follow, which is again made by the thoughts of the people who decided at one point. Right?
Very good. Well, it's kind of like here in California, we have lines around the Taco Bell, because it's the only place you can get gas for $1.49. All right, sorry.
What I'm trying to say is the matter. That's what makes us all think alike or not alike, right? So we tend to discuss, or we tend to argue. So there's two different words. I call it, let's discuss, not argue. Argue can be like, oh my God, I don't like this. And that goes into it, and that stores. Well,
at least you're engaged in a conversation, unlike these woke people who just run away and want to silence you because they have no rational response. Let me throw this back to Alan and Phil. What's the, I guess since we're talking about healing and healing the planet and healing the world, and, we're on the brink of a lot of interesting things happening. Okay, let's say you come from a civilization, and this is for both Alan and Philip. You come from a civilization that's telepathic, that's empathic, that's that lives to be 1,000 years, that has managed to conquer disease. What's the ET take on all this that we're talking about? What's their, other than the fact that they just say, well, your spirit's screwed up and that's why you get disease in the first place, even though they have the power to maybe release things that could cure all our diseases, but they don't. So opinions, please.
It's what Donna said. We're here to work through our karmic cycle, our anger, our issues, our problems. I know it's cliche to say that we're in a schoolhouse, but yeah, we're here to learn the lessons of forgiveness and love the love of the self, and that's the human drama. We are in a drama and we're playing these parts, and the ETs are sitting back and waiting for us to grow up. When are we going to put our weapons away? When are we going to come together as a unified consciousness? When are we going to express the abundance and the free energy and the love and all that we are? I mean, they're not intervening and saving us from ourselves. We have to save personally, collectively, planetarily. We have to clean up our own mess. We made a mess. It's like, you know, your mother would say to you, you're not getting any friends over until you clean up your room. Well, we have to clean up our room before we have some friends over. But you know, I think they're making sure we don't blow up the whole planet, because that would create a little vacuum in time space. But
Yeah.
you know, really, we all have to do the work, and if we're seeing it collectively, it's part of our reality. We have to do something about it. So the karmic field is way beyond the personal individual being. The karmic field of humanity stretches to whatever the news reports.
But
And
it's all of us creating that karmic field. The karmic
of
field.
course, and
We're creating the waves of time that are crashing against the shore that we're trying to divert now. Yes.
yeah, we have to put out intention. Thoughts are things. You know that, Sean. So
Yeah.
the more, you know, when the meditators would meditate in a crime-infested area, the crime would go down. But we need to come together, and we're not. We're just discussing and being angry and all that. So let's do a worldwide something just to put out intention. And these Zooms help. I mean, we do this every day, me and Phil. I see his face every day. It's practically, I live with him again. But we're no, but we're doing it by putting out loving, good, positive thoughts. Like Donna and Gail are doing amazing work. I don't know you, Bhavan, but we just have to keep going until we can get clear of the old karmic patterns.
Philip, comments?
Bhavna, it's Bhavna.
Okay, can I call you that too, Phil?
Thanks for throwing it back. I was having a Glenn Close moment. But Ellen and I are both acupuncturists. And I remember there were many, many times I had my first major practice in South Beach, right on Ocean Drive. Remember, you know, we would needle some congestion out, we would do some sedation, but then that energy would go into another meridian. Especially if they had a negative self-image, it would go to where those negative thoughts, I don't think people realize. I think when you talk about the ETs, the digressive consciousness, they don't want us to realize how powerful we really are. Look what happens when you split one atom, and we have hundreds of millions of cells in our body. The power we have is absolutely immense. And I wish people would really understand that. You have a negative thought. That thought is not going to judge itself. It's not going to judge its origin. It's just going to want to manifest the most negative experiences in your life. Just like the genie. The genie may think that your wish is going to be the worst wish it ever heard, but it has to grant the wish, you know? So, but luckily the same thing happens for positive thoughts too. We really have to learn how important it is. You remember the Emoto Crystals. The most beautiful crystal is the one where you're talking
about Dr. Emoto, who worked with water, and how if you sent positive vibrations into water, the water would.
And it really does
light up and become interesting.
Manifested just sending the thoughts of forgiveness and gratitude. It was the structure of that crystal that could hold so much love, so much grace. It could hold and radiate that much light. So just imagine if you become the living embodiment of forgiveness and gratitude and all the attitudes and etiquette of spiritual mastery. Every crystal and micro crystal in your body will be able to hold and radiate that light. That's when you become a presence healer, right, ladies? That's when you walk the earth like the Magdalens or the Marys, and Jesus was so impressed by just the sheer effulgence of light. You know, it's interesting. I haven't been to an expo in many, many years, but I tell you, and I'm looking at all these names, and I only recognize a few, but I got to tell you, I'm glad I got the chance to say this. And Sean, God, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know,
it's good to be alive, literally.
It's like being on this panel. You know how you come in out of the cold or out of the snow, and you come in and you get that first blast of warm air from the fireplace. Even though I haven't been to an expo in so many years, it really is like coming home. I really I mean, look at this face. Look at this face. I'm on the verge of tears. Look at this. I mean, just coming back here and being on this panel is just really, it's just, I feel.
Well, we're honored to have you, Phil, because you're a great light and a wonderful person and a great intellect. And I sat at your feet for years, just absorbing you. It's just, you're fantastic.
In Singapore, I'm going to start a nonprofit called the Mustard Seed Foundation, very much like the Creative Miracles Foundation, Donna. I know your work. I do my homework. And I'm just really honored to be with all of you. It just feels like coming home.
Thank you. Really it's we love to have you home. So make yourself
like Matthew.
Make yourself comfortable. Eat whatever's in the refrigerator.
The mysteries has been given to you, and even if you have, more will be given, and if you don't, even that which you have will be taken away. You've got to know you have it. You've got to be able to keep yourself focused in that place.
All right, here's the whole enchilada. How much time do we have left, Mark? About 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, here it is. I'm throwing out this to everybody. You can take it as is. All right, I'm talking about this later on. Actually, right after this, I think I'm talking about this. Yeah. Have the timelines changed? Have we? What I'm going to be talking about is Nostradamus, wrong. Edgar Cayce, wrong. Gordon Michael Scallion, wrong. Great Pyramids now are even getting to the point where they're wrong and incorrect. It seemed as though whether you love him or hate him, Trump was somehow took the needle off the record for a period of time and disrupted the groove for a moment or two. They fully expected it was going to be that wonderful woman Hillary Clinton, and didn't happen, obviously. So, and you saw the trouble that they went to put that needle back on the record, supposedly to put us back in that timeline of destruction. How has the timeline changed for you? What is it that you've seen? And actually, we can start with Bhavna on this because she hasn't had that much of a chance to talk. Have you seen the timeline shifting? Have you seen, because I'm seeing all this prophecy that was correct up until about 2005, maybe up until 2012. I think the last thing the Great Pyramid got right was the Asian tsunami in Christmas of 2004. And after that, it's just been, we seem to be completely off the tracks. It seems as though somebody's gone back in the hologram and hit the reset button. That maybe we did destroy ourselves in some timeline. So you want to comment on if you've seen shifts in the timeline? Actually, Phil, let's because I know you have comments on this. Let's start with you. You want to talk about the shift in the timeline, or if they're?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, that's it. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
They've never gotten the results of title fights in mixed martial arts right. That's for sure. They were totally off base with what's his name. Yeah. No, I think Alan alluded to it earlier, and I'll just be very brief. I think where the collective go, we don't have to go where the collective goes, but I think I think that when a consensus of human consciousness yes, there are many multiple timelines, a lot of dimensional blending, and the ones we choose, the one that the collective chooses, that's the course that the earth is going to follow. So I think we really have to go for the highest, we appeal to the highest common denominator, and there is a path of grace and a path of freedom. We just have to remember that is a possibility, and we all need to see it, and we all just need to show up and just walk through it. It's right there for every one of us, but we're like feathers in each other's wings. We really need each other to stay aloft. I mean, yeah, we can. I made that up.
But like Alan
said, very good.
I think the timeline.
Alan alluded to it. Where the critical mass of human consciousness goes, that's where the planet goes. But we don't necessarily have to go where the collective goes.
So, are any of you seeing the whole New World Order plan of a population of 500 million?
Well,
killing 7.5 billion people on the planet.
Abductions these days.
Yes.
One of the main reasons for abductions was because, especially incarnates of what's called the human incarnates of a race, an elite ET race called the Bellicudium, they had a recessive gene that the Dracos could use to take over human consciousness, but they don't have to do that anymore. And it was a very painful process harvesting that gene. They're using, and we've talked about this for many years, genetic windows of infiltration.
Oh my.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
To insert this kind of consciousness. And so we really need to.
Bhavna was going to say something. She raised her hand.
Yes, Bhavna.
So coming to your timeline, yes, the timelines are shifting. We've already stepped into 5 dimension, and the 5 dimension is all about living in unconditional love and not judgment, and being a peaceful civilization. And because that's what the whole entire universe is looking at Earth, because of the position where the Earth is in the entire universal dynamics. Okay.
And yet murder is up, crime is up, government is out of control. We're on the verge of, the verge of possible nuclear war.
No, so coming to that point, yes, because see, before, like always say, before everything becomes right, there has to be a balance. So it's going into a state of balance. If there's excessive amount of things which are happening, which are wrong, need to come out for people to notice. So if there was sex, molestation, abuse, whichever was happening, but it was done silently, people were not aware. Now it is all coming up in front and people are getting aware and they will step up. So things have to come up to the point where people will say, no, we do not want this. So it has to reach till people will start to collectively say, we do not choose this, because it is our freedom and it is our free will to voice that opinion that we do not want that. And because we've shifted from the male divine feminine energies into feminine divine energies era, which started in December 2012. And now that we are into that, the feminine part, if you see any woman you talk to, including me, we are very emotional. So all the emotions are going to be coming up, whether it's with males or females. Everybody is in that universal energies of being emotional. So everybody's going to start to voice till we create that balance. And that is what is going to happen. And so people who are going to resist that, that's why we say we are in the 5D. And so every person on this earth is going to have an awakening. And if you don't choose, I always say, choose to have that awakening, because it's more connecting with who you are at the core level, who you are at the soul level, why you came down here, and what's your purpose. So connect with that part and allow your light to shine, because when you allow your light to shine, you are an amazing human being, an amazing soul. And collectively, then we can all start to make that shift.
I want to just
yes.
Okay.
Go.
I just want to add to that. The feminine is not linear. So you're talking about timelines. It's a very linear thing. We're moving into quantum time-space realities where we're multiple dimensions and many people are living in many different timelines. Actually, each of us have our own timeline, but where the collective comes together and there's a shock, the Kennedy assassination, there's a bifurcation in timeline development. The COVID last 2 or 3 years, that shifted us. Yes, Trump shifted us. So what was planned out, there's no plan for the future. We have to create the future. Come on, you can't judge the past and go to the future. We have to create something new and unseen. That's the block that remote viewers are coming up against, because we need to take control of the reins and create the timelines we want. And the multiple dimensional realities that we live in need to be acknowledged, because we are all moving into many spheres of layer, and our interactions with the ETs are proving that. So,
well, it's certainly created a. Hold on, hey, we don't have that much time left. So nice hat, Phil. Exactly what Alan's talking about. We're moving into the. It's interesting. You're a horse. All right, put your pony down there, buddy. You're not delivering the mail. Exactly what Alan's talking about, and again. When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, which was sung by the 5th dimension, by the way, huh? You get the connection? So, and what is the 5th dimension? Height, width, breadth. 4th dimension is measurement of time, but 5th dimension is that what you think is magic, that what you think becoming physical reality. And what has stopped magic from happening is counter intention, because for every intention, you create the equal and opposite counter intention. Therefore, if you just got a basketball on a court, it's no fun until somebody jumps up and says, hey, you want to play, and gets in your way of actually putting the basket in the hoop. So we've moved into that 5th dimensional reality of all of us. the timeline shifting away from 500 million people surviving some global dystopian apocalypse, of killing 7 billion people on the planet, which I'm sure the New World Order wants to do. But all right, Donna, and then we're going to give we'll give gorgeous Gail the last breath here. So again, have you seen timeline shifting, and maybe what do you see the future holding for all of us? As I said, we've only got about 7 minutes left, so go ahead.
Okay, real fast. So after my lead experience in 1994, I think I told you about this, Sean, that I
Yes.
had a number of prophecies and visions and everything in 1994. So in 1994, I saw the tsunami and 9/11, and everything was just coming out just as I had seen it. And then whenever 2012 hit, then it was, if you want to call it, a cement wall. But I couldn't see everything I saw or tried to project. I was very good at projecting the future between 1994 and 2012. But then after 2012, I'd make predictions and they wouldn't come true. So things were shifting. So I definitely agree with Sean that everything has shifted regarding timelines. Regarding this war basically the only thing I could say is I just overlay the whole situation with peace and peace and peace. Whether one side is correct, the other side is correct, whatever. I just overlay the whole thing with peace. And I actually don't listen to the news. But if I do listen to the news, I know this, and this is the truth is the opposite of what the fake news creates as reality. So that's all you have to remember. Whatever they say, just take the opposite of it.
Yeah, do the opposite. And it's like, I'm thinking about taking up smoking any day now because they say it's so bad for you.
Yeah.
But, so
No,
there you go.
no,
But it is
seriously.
the military industrial entertainment pharmaceutical complex. And people used to laugh when I used to say that, and they don't realize that companies like Pfizer own big chunks of the military industrial complex. And now you've seen, it is interesting how they've used this disease to completely run roughshod over our freedoms and train the population into as a test market, if you will, trial balloon for what they think is next. And as I'm going to hand it off over to Gail here, once again, I think the greatest thing about what happened in 2012 and people becoming aware of the Mayan calendar is that the Mayan calendar is not a calendar of dates, it's a calendar of consciousness. And if you understand that it's all 13s and 20s, and you've got 13 main joints in the body and 20 fingers and toes, and 13 times 20 is 260, and that's the orbit of Venus, which is where the Mayans think they came from. But here's the key. The key to it is, for the first time in approximately 26,000 years, you have the right and the left-hand side of the brains where the veil has now come off, which means it's all about integrating the masculine and the feminine, because the right-hand side of the brain thinks in terms of symbols, archetypes, music, color, dance, but it exists in quantum time, as Alan was saying. So now we're entering that quantum time for the first time in close to 26,000 years without blinders on either side of the brain. So we're integrating the masculine and the feminine into something wonderful and something beautiful. But as that meshing is coming together, we're having all these conflicts. Gail, I'm going to give you the last word here because as I said, we're running out of time. So once again, what do you see? Anything for the future, or for what you're seeing from your healing? And because I've seen the timelines completely shift, and as a student of prophecy, and making a lot of predictions myself, I've seen us quite possibly walking into some kind of new age, tall and proud, with about 8 billion of us intact, and then choosing the new path rather than having to wipe out 90% of the population. So on you, Gail. Go on, take it home, baby. There you go, love.
Well, I had a very similar experience to Donna. I remember about 10 years ago, I did a reading. I predicted some things to do with the stock market. Absolutely came true. But at the same time, I predicted there was going to be this massive earthquake in San Francisco on August 28th. And I freaked out because my mom, a few days later, tells me, oh, I'm going to be there for my birthday. And I begged her, and she ended up changing the trip. They were all mad at me. It came and went, and nothing happened. And a few weeks later, I'm at the James Gilliland Ranch, and they're talking about, there was supposed to be this big earthquake in San Francisco, August 28th, but these Palladians intervened, and they changed the timeline. And
was this 89 when the quake actually happened?
No, this was afterwards. This is
Okay. All right. Okay.
Nothing happened that day.
Okay.
Right. And I've noticed it in healing. Like somebody will come in and they can't move their arms all stiff, but yet I'll see a timeline that's like a millisecond away where their arm's fine. And I connect them and move them into that new timeline. All of a sudden they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's like a miraculous healing. They think it's miraculous because, in this timeline, there was this major problem. They had this tumor or whatever, and you could move them into that other timeline where they don't have it. And then it appears like, well, how did that happen? That was just, instant miraculous.
So you're saying that you're adjusting the timeline within the soul, within themselves.
Within that person. So
right.
we can all adjust our own individual timeline. And that's how I've seen a lot of this healing takes place, and a person can do it themselves. What a healer is doing, they're just helping them to bring them into a different timeline. And
right.
that's when you see these like miraculous, instantaneous healings where all of a sudden they get up and they start walking. And so I see it on an individual level, but when we're talking about world events like COVID, like the war that's going on with Russia and Ukraine right now, it's a matter of the collective consciousness is going down one path. But the good thing about it is the collective consciousness can also shift that. And I've seen it shift to the positive. So when you say your timeline shifting, yeah, but we can shift the timeline to something more positive. And so when the collective consciousness is looking at the TV and they're seeing this negative stuff and they have this hatred for Putin and they think, oh, these poor people and what's happening to them, it's actually making it worse because we're actually feeding into that timeline. Whereas if we can put out that we're seeing in the future, we're seeing peace, we're seeing gratitude for what we have. It's about the collective coming together and not being angry because we're making it worse, but
right.
actually all coming together to pray for peace and for the outcome that we do want to have and seeing a resolution and the positive coming from whatever learning lesson. The reason that we're having this is because enough people are requiring that kind of experience in their timeline right now. And so that's why we have these events. That's why we had COVID. That's why we have this. I mean, it's not like the Ukrainian people did something bad and they're trying to all have this happen to them. But on some level, there's enough people that wanted this in the consciousness and also the rest of the world that are watching and experiencing it. But we can take control over that and we can switch the timeline. And we have to come together to really, bring the resolution, the positiveness on a conscious level.
Well, and look what's happening. Remember, I was just saying that you've got the east and the west sides of the brain. And as they're beginning to integrate, what's right in the middle of that is Ukraine, east and west sides of the brain. So, okay, we're completely out of time. My talk comes literally, I think I'm going to take a break of about 15 minutes or so. But my talk comes right after this. So it's supposed to be 11:15. And that's where we're at now. I want to thank Bhavna. I want to thank the amazing Alan Steinfeld and his wonderful book, Making Contact. Philip Gruber, you have a book you want to pump or promote or anything you want to do out there? Philip? Nah. Okay. All right. Gail Thackray, of course, is the amazing healer, and she's got a book. Your book you've got Running with Wolves. You got another book.
I got lots of books, but I'm on this afternoon. I'm on 6 p.m. tonight. I'm doing an hour and a half, and I'm working on individual people.
Okay. All right. And she's a big movie producer now, so don't expect her to call you back. So if you ever get in there, Donna Mcgrath. Yes, Phil, you want to say one last thing?
Come on, people now.
Smile on your brother. Everybody get together.
Try to love one another right now.
That's how we're going to end it. So it's a strange multiverse, and we just work here all as one. Life has purpose. God is love. I'll see you in a few minutes. All right.
Thanks Don. You're doing great.
Everybody. It's good to be alive. It's wonderful to spend some time with you and bask in the warm glow of your sunny personalities. Even Mark Becker, who suddenly became on the panel. All right. So bye. Everybody see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was a fun panel.
It was fun, wasn't it? It's everybody was everybody's in a good mood. Huh? Don't you think?
Yes.
I think
I love it when people come together and we together can shift and understand each other's perspective and say, oh, it's not just me, it's them also. They're also feeling the same thing. It's wonderful.
So. I think it was I think it was good fun. Okay, well, I guess I'm supposed to have a thing here.
Thank you very much.
So, Bhavna, always an honor and a pleasure. Namaste. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
I'll answer chat.
Sean.
Yes.
What room am I in right now? Bhavna, can you tell me?
Then I'll let you know. Hold on. Okay. Hold on.
Giselle, thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I up next? Is this what's happening?
I don't know. I don't know what the lineup is.
I was pulled into this room. I think I am.
I think it's Mark. I think he's taking a break for 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Juliana, you are here. You are here next.
Oh, I'm up at 2:30, correct?
Oh, I see.
Juliana, you're in the correct room, the main room,
Lynn?
and you are up right now.
Lynn, you're
right now.
From 2:15 to 2:30, according to the schedule.
Oh, okay, great.
This is Donna's assistant. I'm just kind of stepping up.
Lynn,
Wait,
Lynn, you're at 4:30 as your workshop.
I have 4:30 I have 4:30 for presentation, correct?
Correct. Right now we're just waiting here, but 4:30 is your presentation.
Aren't I supposed to be in room 16?
And no, your workshop is in the main room. And afterwards, if you want to follow up the questions with people or you need more time, then go to room 16. But you're going to start in the main room.
And so we're in the main room now?
She needs to go to room 2.
Yes.
She needs to go to room 2.
I need to go to room 2, to the breakout room 2 right now. That's the psychic room. Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Juliana Rose. I am a multidimensional starlight presence assisting the awakening and evolving consciousness of humanity to oneness. And I have over 20 years of energetic healing and training in several different modalities. And my mission is to heal and teach and awaken others to their soul-aligned purpose and passion, and also to activate the crystalline grids, and also to create global communities. And you can find me at julianarose.net or Instagram at Juliana Rose Healing, as well as on Facebook, Juliana Rose 1111. And today I want to do a cosmic light language transmission for celebrating the equinox. My soul light language name is Laite. That's pronounced La-I-Te-I. And what that means is source light. I was given that name. And so I connect directly with source light. I am here on this planet as a volunteer to help to radiate the cosmic light. And my awakening began at age 28 in New York City. And I knew that I had a lot more to offer than just teaching Pilates and yoga and meditation at that time. And I began naturally shifting and metamorphosizing my being. About 8 years ago, I was awakened with my light language abilities, which opened more of my cosmic pathways to more multi-dimensions of my universe. And the best way to describe what light language is for me is it's the spoken word and sound that bypasses the subconscious, and in order to access the truth within us directly connected to source and our higher selves. And it provides all kinds of healings, and it provides all kinds of channelings and activations for your DNA, your cellular structure, into the quantum and beyond. It can help heal your emotions and your physicality and connect with your innate wisdom and activate dormant gifts and truths and connect to your purpose and your true essence of why you're here. And light language can be expressed in many different ways, through spoken language, through written language, transmitted through binaural beats, danced, signed with your hands. It can be toned. I tend to mix mantras with light language. And that's just been my pattern lately. And I'm having a lot of fun with that. And because it's equinox today, equinox being the most equal, almost equal point of day and night, it has a special harmonic today and a special equanimity that it's being brought into the planet, especially with the high energy that is happening in 2022 and all the visitations of our remembrance and awakening. So I like to go in gentle flow with the divine feminine and masculine in oneness. So this is my very favorite time of the year to do that. And I would love to have you experience my light language in that way. So the first thing, as you feel called and connected, is to go into the Dhyana Mudra. The Dhyana Mudra is with your right palm on top of your left palm with your thumbs touching, making a complete cosmic circle. And then you can just place them down on your lap, and it will help you to connect to that universal connection. And the second thing that I want to do is open the space. Open the sacred space so that you have a nice wide open heart and you are open to sound resonance. So let us begin. I'm going to use my little bells to help us come into this space. And so as I am a natural healer, it's in my DNA and it has been for many lifetimes, I am just going to allow it to flow to everyone as they accept it. On the count of 3, here we go. 1.
Mike. Hello,
2.
Mike.
Can somebody mute? Everybody be muted, please. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Mike.
Oh.
Hello, Mike. Did you need assistance, Mike?
Hello, Mike. Is there someone that can mute that?
Did somebody call me?
It said Mike. Somebody's looking for Mike.
Oh,
Can somebody mute her? Okay. All right. And I'm going to begin. Om Soham. Om Soham. Pointi ambrokuen the perque kita nembrokue tate in the perque shikatai in the kita perque shikatai in the kia. We are here on this spring equinox day with Laite and her team, with the angelic presence, with the archangelics, with the ascended masters, with the gods and goddesses of her frequency who have come in to assist in any healing, channeling, and the bringing of peace and humanity here on this planet. We are very blessed to be here. Soy kandaita ukonamre shikatain the koroporo shikatain the kita poroko shikatain the kia. Om Soham is that inner peace and tranquility mantra, and we suggest that you try it for the next 40 days. 40 days, 20 days of releasing the old and 20 days of beginning a new habit, a new frequency within you. Om Soham. Om Soham. Om being the sound of the universe. Soham meaning I am that. Om Soham being I am that universe. I am the universe within and all around. Align yourself with the infinite source, inner peace, inner joy, inner harmony that you already are. Soin jikatain do kukan bara shukatain de kina purukua katain burukua kia takai shukote kia. Om Soham. The number and the number the all 12 DNA strands activating now. Feel your field expanding in your heart with love, with joy, with peace, with harmony and equanimity as you quiet your mind and allow the body to rise up in frequency. Bring it down into your body and down into the crystalline pool of light below your feet and down into the connection of the Earth Star chakra within you. So come into your soul, bring your soul chakra all the way activated within you. Allow your light body to come alive and thrive here on this planet. You don't need to worry your mind. You don't need those thoughts of worry, of stress, of anxiety. Allow them to rest right now. Open your heart frequency. Allow your heart to sing the words and sounds of the universe. Om Soham. Sit in silence. Sit in stillness. Sit in the quiet space within you. And allow all that you are feeling to expand beyond and shift beyond. And again, shift beyond that. And shift beyond that into full clarity now. You are loved. Your spirit guides are already all around you. You just need to say yes with your body at all moments. Say yes to the healings. Say yes to creating a wondrous, ultra light field in you and all around you and beyond you and beyond, 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 beyond. Soy chainda ko ukan kiata kain ko shikataingi. Take every breath as fresh breath, as powerful breath, as enlightening, brightening breath. Absolute focus inside. Your inside will resonate with the frequencies that are resonating with your truth on the outside. Come into the inside world of you and light it up like little tiny crystals and fairies lighting you up inside. Allow your water, your earth, your air, your fire, your ether to come into that oneness, equanimity, harmony at maximum capacity now. Thank you, everyone. Namaste. I think I'm finishing on time. Is there more? Do I keep going? You can find me at julianarose.net, facebook.com at julianarose1111, Instagram Juliana Rose Healing, and I am beginning a YouTube channel, redoing it to have Juliana Rose Healings. And I offer moon groups where I celebrate the new moon and the full moon. Laite and I are building a community of coursework for light workers, for healers, for wounded healers, for individuals who want more of their light to shine in more advancement of light worker energy. I will be offering emotional healings, as well as DNA reprogramming courses. Who qualify for those courses, and then many others following. It will be a school of light for the global communities interested in this frequency. And for those who want to learn light language too and to come into their frequency, that Ite will be creating another course for that, as well as creating mantra and meditation courses. Since the background of Juliana Rose has always been Pilates, dance, yoga, meditation, and shamanism. So if you are wanting to join the priestess, the goddess, the empress energies that are coming onto this planet and balancing out your divine feminine and masculine, please get in touch with me. And I send you all infinite love and blessings. And do not forget to sit in meditation with your heart and open up to the sun, the moon, the star nations that you are here on this beautiful planet we call Gaia, her personality. And we're so blessed to have you. Does anybody have any questions? I open up the field. Thank you.
Juliana, it looks like you will be moved to a different breakout room until the top of the hour, and people can join there.
Thank you so much. Bye for now. Do you want me to go there physically, or is someone going to move me?
Let me check.
Okay. Well, let's just have a conversation about the heart until that happens. The heart can be very wounded right now and feel like there's a lot of clenching. Please do your best to open your heart to receive. Allow the frequencies to come in and allow it to be in oneness. Hi, Robert McKenzie. I know you.
Yes. So good to see you.
And the end of the end of allow the Reiki frequencies to flow within you. The Reiki frequencies, my dears, are raising up to the galactic energy. I play in the galactic realms, I play in the universal realms. Yeah. So when you feel it, I don't know if you can feel that, but anyone who plays with Reiki.
Can you hear me? Anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, you went over a very much longer, 10 minutes.
Where am I supposed to go? Where would you like me to go?
Srikanth Gopi, I'm so sorry, Srikanth. Okay, thank you. So Srikanth Gopi, and you can follow Juliana to her room. What room is that, Juliana?
12, please.
The room 12, thank you.
Thank you.
So Srikanth Gopi, Mama points and chakras, I am so sorry.
You're good, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So tell a little bit about yourself. I know that people love the system of the Mama points and chakras.
Yes. Yeah, so before we start, I like to play like a couple of minutes of a music that I've recently done, and I'm about to release on the YouTube channel. So maybe we can sit with closed eyes, connect to the divine for a couple of minutes, and then we'll start. So the music is composed by me and the voice is by my wife. So please, let's close our eyes for 2 minutes. Okay, please open your eyes. So chakras, marmas, and koshas. I've been presenting in NewLife Expo for probably a couple of years now. And the first research study that I've conducted in the University of West Georgia had presented. And then second study also had presented. The third study right now we are conducting in the University of Kennesaw State University. And it's an ongoing research. Yesterday we had a research program in which 4 participants participated. And I'm going to go straight into the program, what we did. It's an ongoing, so it's like really hot now in my mind. So I'm going to show you what we did and what we have been doing. And those are some Vedic practices that we do. And we have been doing research internally for over 15 years and externally right now scientifically for over 2 years. Measuring the performance of the meditation on human mind. Because I'm a mechanical engineer, I like to measure everything that I learn, I study, I believe before I take it in. So I had done all those measurements before, but now I'm coming out into the world to show it to people, common man, how these Vedic practices can be of help to human mind. So I'm going to take you through some data that I've taken from the World Health Organization report on stress recently released. And it's going to be the papers, not the presentation. So it's going to be a little bit crowded, but please be with me because I didn't get time to make the presentation. But next time maybe I can make it. But I have made some of it into the PowerPoint. So let's go straight into the data and find out how serious the problem is and how leaving our mind without monitoring affects our heart and our health and definitely our immune system. Right now, it's all about our immune system, right, going on in the world, and how it can also affect the collective and how it can also bring about peace. This is what we are studying. So let me show you the paper that I'm just preparing. It is not published, so please don't take any parts of it because it's not yet given out. So I'm going to present it in the IEEE, the month end. All right, so let's look into it.
Yes, Srikanth, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just sharing. I'm just finding where's my file to share. Just hold on.
Okay, okay.
So can you see I don't know if you're seeing the right screen. Are you seeing the effect of meditative practice screen or something else? Okay, let me open it again. Hold on. Give me a minute, please. Okay. All right, so got it. Okay, now you can see, right? Effect of meditative practices.
Yes.
Okay. So the current, I'm just going to read through it, so please be with me if you can. The current global situation has raised stress and anxiety beyond controllable levels. Stress affects all systems of the body, including musculoskeletal, respiratory, cardiovascular, endocrine, gastrointestinal, nervous, and reproductive systems. This is all paper reviewed, taken from the reviewed papers. The rise in prices of everyday items, then it goes on to talk about how the effect of stress is now more. The rise in prices of everyday items due to inflation, supply chain issues, global uncertainties, war, and potential retaliation from other countries were top sources of stress. So the American Psychological Association has shown how the concerns are increasing to alarming levels in the US. Nearly 1 billion people suffer from a mental illness in the world, and 3 million people die every year from abuse of alcohol, substance, or other addictive behaviors. And 1 person commits suicide every 40 seconds. Depression and anxiety, two of the most common mental health illnesses, cost the global economy $1 trillion per year. The cost of mental illness in USA is estimated at 193 billion in lost earnings alone every year. In addition, untreated mental illness cost the US up to $300 billion. There is a return of investment of 500%. Suppose we invest into the field to improve it, we get back 5 times. Stress affects all systems. Then it goes on about more on the stress. The aim of meditation is to reduce or eliminate irrelevant thought processes through training of internalized attention, physical and mental relaxation, stress reduction, psycho-emotional stability, and improved concentration are all benefits of meditation. I'm sure you heard a lot of meditation. I'm not going to go deep into meditation. But then speaks about heart coherence, right? Heart coherence is a psychological state that is linked to improved cognitive function, self-control, emotional stability, and resilience. So this is where I like to focus on, because we used as usual, we use the device Inner Balance. I'm sure many of you know from HeartMath, right? So we connect the device. It's basically like an earphone. So we connect it to one ear, and the other edge we connect it to the phone. And then in the app, you can see the measurement of your heart coherence. Heart coherence is an optimal physiological state associated with increased cognitive function, self-regulatory capacity, emotional stability, and resilience. So basically, heart coherence means, I know many of you know it, but maybe in layman terms, it depends on your heart rhythm, and it shows how uniformly your heart is beating. So if you are in a coherent state, or if you are in a meditative state, then your heart will beat in equal intervals. Suppose you are not in coherence, that is, if you are stressed or if your thoughts are more, then the coherence level will go down, and that will show that you're more in your brain, in your thoughts, and the stress is higher. So the levels start from 0 to 16, and generally we have seen people moving from 0 to 6. This is the normal most range. And when we do these practices, we are only working on 4 practices at this point of time. But in the programs, we conduct more practices. So as we increase the number of practices, the coherence level goes up and goes up into very high levels, where the ecstasy and bliss and joy and peace increases. And also it spreads into everyone else and everything else. So I'm just going to take you into the PowerPoint now. So I'm going to show you what we found just yesterday. There is so much of data that I have previously taken and studies that I've previously conducted, but this is interesting because it's just taken yesterday. It is not analyzed or it's not having any results. It's just like a live show. I'm doing what we're doing, but it's interesting. So definitely going through these practices improves confidence and concentration. It improves relationships, your state of health, your immune system, memory and intelligence, strengths, skills, creativity. It decreases stress. It decreases cravings, addictions, and it improves the emotional state, and it improves the connection with the divine, and it improves synchronicity, and also you start manifesting beautiful things in life when you go through these practices. The impact of meditation on human Maximus. The impact of meditation on human consciousness was studied using this device, and it was done by a biofeedback device, which I just showed you. And we went through 4 practices. One is ritual, that's an ancient ritual. And we did chakra and marma meditation, which I presented last time. Holotropic breathing practice, that's a practice that we do. We do fast breathing. I'm going to show you more. And Kapalbhati is another kind of breathing practice, which I'm going to explain to you. And also it is found that the heart coherence increases with most of the meditative practices, and circular breathing or connected breathing was found to be the most effective. Sequentially, it was experienced that further ancient advanced rituals and cosmic travel practices increase the effect here. I'm reading fast, but I can slow down. I'm reading fast because I like to go to the results faster. But basically, it says that the practice improves your heart coherence, and it reduces the stress, and as the practices we go through more, it further reduces, the stress further reduces, and the heart coherence rises. So the beauty of this is that we can see it live happening. So as you can see in the figure, you can see the curve that is shown, the green part, right? So what happens is when we measure it, at that point of time, every thought has got a frequency, and every thought affects our heart rhythm. Every beat is influenced by our mind, right? We think it's like we stress out and that at some point in the future, something happens to our body. It's not like that. At that very moment, each thought has got its own effect in the body. So if you have a negative thought, immediately the curve drops into red, right? If you have a positive thought, immediately it goes into green, like that. It can go in a second, in a fraction of a second, it can go. So even before we know what our thought is, then the device will measure it and say, what is the effect of that thought on our body? So this can be used by any of your practices. I know many of you are into meditative practices. So this is a beautiful device because we can use it so handy. And sometimes I used it while driving. I just flip it on into the phone, and in 1 hour's time, I can know how my mind was working during driving, right? If I'm in the green, then I know I was driving stresslessly. If I'm in the red, or if I'm waving through red, blue, and green on the phone, not during the driving, after driving, I can check. I can know what is the stress pattern of my thoughts. So that's one of the applications which I found. Or anything that we do, we can actually measure in parallel also. So we don't have to really look into it, keep looking at it. We can keep it on the side. When we finish our 1 hour work, then we can see how our mind functions. Are we in stress? Are we not in stress? So we are speaking about stress thoughts and patterns that we are not aware about, right? We think we are in real peace and meditation, and we are listening to music and all this. But actually the device will show what our unconscious thought patterns are. So that accurate the device is, right? So I'm using it for 2 years now. I know little more how to really use the function of it. And what we have found is, here you can see the curve, right? So you can see the red drop, you can see around 4.3 is the time when that person thought a negative thought. At that second, boom, it will go down, right? And then it will go up. It's very, very momentary, I can say. So you can see if you are in incoherence, this is from HeartMath website. So if you are in incoherence, then you can see how the rhythm, heart rate curve is shown. And if you are in coherence, it's more smoother. So incoherence means we are going through frustration, anxiety, worry, and all this. But it's not that we know about it. Let me just say it again. Many times we don't know it's underneath our beautiful thoughts. Outside, we may be acting really nice and cozy and easy and all that. But internally, at somewhere, some point, we will be speaking or talking internally negatively. Then it drops, right? So the first practice was Arati. So we went through 4 practices, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes each, right? And the first practice was Arati. The second practice was Chakra Meditation. The third practice was Holotropic Breathing. Kapalbhati was the fourth meditation. Okay. I'm going to go into that. So Arati is a basic ancient ritual. It is not religious. I'm not following religion at all here, but it's used by religion a lot. But it's very clearly mentioned in the scriptures how we do it. So we followed some simple method in which we lit a lamp and we have a consecrated idol of the divine, and we just do some action like we move it around the divine, the lamp, and then we have the incense sticks which we move it around the divine. So if you have been to temples, you'll see them doing this all the time, right? But this time we are doing it at home by ourselves as a practice, as a meditative practice, but open eyes. And then we offer a few items to the divine. So for example, we offer some fruits, we offer a lot of flowers, and we offer money, we offer jewelry, and we offer water, right? So we treat the divine as though physically the divine is present there. But actually the divine is present if the idol is consecrated. Then the effect is really high. But because it is from an ancient ritual, I expected that this will be the least effective for people because they're new to it. They didn't know what they're doing. And the second meditation was Chakra Meditation, in which we focus on chakras, marmas, and koshas. And this is a little bit detailed. This I have shown in the previous presentation. So we focus on 7 marma points. So basically our tailbone region, then we have navel center, solar plexus, heart center, throat center, ajna point, and top of the head. So that is basically parts of body itself we are visualizing. We are not visualizing chakras. We are visualizing the body itself, body point itself. Through that, we get access to the chakras and the further layers of the body known as koshas. In this meditation, we just focused on chakras only, 7 chakras only, through chanting. So this is a seated position. And then holotropic breathing was, we will do like fast breathing. It's not a circular breathing. I'm sure many of you know this, very famous. And then we have Kapalbhati breathing where we go. It's not the typical Kapalbhati. In this method, we hold our hands on the hips. So we go back and we go with forceful exhalation as we go down like this. So like this, right? Like this. So this is Kapalbhati breathing. So that breathing, it actually expels a lot of negative energies, entities, emotions, and all out of the system. So we went to 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes each. So it has got an effect on the individual so much that it started showing into measurements. So these are the measurements we just took yesterday. We are not analyzed it, it's just raw measurements. So the first meditation, so this particular person has got the second meditation, it went to 4.9, right? The first one 4.5, and the last one is 1.4, which means that when that person was doing Kapalbhati meditation, it was actually, she was having a lot of thoughts, much more than the first meditation or the second one, right? And the second person had the first was 4.4. See, anything above 0.9 is green according to the device. Anything about 0.5 is blue. Anything about below 0.5 is red, right? So you can see.
Srikant?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I know you started late, and everybody, Srikant started late. So, Srikant, we're starting the nutrition panel, and Srikant is going to go to room 13. So everybody, to continue this, just go to room 13 to follow Srikant. Vicky, if you can send Srikant to room 13. And I'm so sorry about the scroll before my computers went dead. And so Vicky, if you can do that. And okay, so we're doing the nutrition panel. And what the nutrition panel is not only about nutrition, but it's how to strengthen who you are and what to do with all the craziness that's going on the planet right now. So we have Kat James, we have Nick Delgado, we have Joel Wallach, and we have Dr. Robert Young. And so take it away. I'm sorry, you can introduce yourselves because it is a little bit late. Robert, yeah, why don't you start, Robert, and Robert will be narrating the panel.
Yes, well, thank you, Mark, and welcome everyone to the nutritional panel. And I'm happy to turn the time over to each individual just to introduce yourselves. We could start out with the wonderful human being, Dr. Nick Delgado. It's always good to see him. He's the blood guy, the blood never lies guy, and I believe that with all my heart. So, Nick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Robert. The blood doesn't lie is based on the fact that for 45 years, I've been looking at the body's blood cells, the immune system, the terrain. And it's interesting that most of the rest of the world has no appreciation for how the immune system actually works. Keep in mind that even medical doctors, because I go to medical conferences and I set up my microscopes and lines of doctors line up to have me test them. Even doctors who have degrees in hematology, which means they studied blood to continue their expert work. And the reality is they tell me, we look at blood stains, we don't look at live blood. And so the fact is that what we're about to teach you during this nutrition seminar is what Robert Young and I both do blood microscopy. We both worked with Tony Robbins. I set the stage for it, and then he picked up right after I was there. But the point is that the immune system is wondrous and amazing, and the average doctor has no clue how it works. And if your doctor doesn't have any clue, the rest of the world has no clue. And so you have a situation where people are in fear and paranoia about something that we really have to appreciate. How do we actually build up the immune system at its strongest level, which I believe the 7 pillars of health: sleep, detoxification, nutrition, fitness, hormonal optimization, and advanced therapeutics. These 7 steps, along with the power of the mind to direct you to stay on track, will build the strongest possible immune system. And one point, by the age of 65, your immune system declines by over 6,000%. So this is something that, regardless of if it's COVID or a flu or some transmittable disease or condition, your immune system is at its weakest point as you age. So we have to prop up the body, even novel methods of peptides. So we're going to get into all of this during this session, right, Robert?
Absolutely, and more. So thank you for sharing. Who do we have next there? Robert Mack, are you there, or Susan?
There's Joel Wallach and there's Kat James.
Okay, I can't. Kat, why don't you go ahead? The beautiful Kat, why don't you share with us, introduce yourself and the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you, Robert. Since you've touched already, Nick, on so many great things, I'm going to add a layer to that. There's a trend epigenetically toward less and less metabolic integrity in people. And there are markers. Clearly, there's all-cause mortality it goes up when people's insulin, for example, is high. And leptin is a hormone that will show resistance even before we gain insulin resistance. And it happens to be the compass of the body. It's not talked about. It's misunderstood even in the science, because it's not about more leptin. It's about regaining sensitivity to it. There's not a system that it doesn't modulate and dominate. And I discovered this accidentally before the hormone was discovered in 1990, when I almost died after near liver failure, after a 12-year eating disorder issue, but also autoimmune issues and gut issues and many other things, but a serious food addiction that I never ever thought I'd be free of, which is another hallmark of regaining sensitivity to this master hormone. And so what happens then, you heal your dopamine pathways. So any addicted person is going to suddenly feel motivated. Literally, that's the counterpoint of addiction. But also you're going to heal your autonomic nervous system, so you'll be able to rest and digest what you consume. But also it modulates immunity, which is really relevant in these times, so you won't have an overreaction. Your skin is transformed. Long story short, 4 years later, the man who discovered leptin, Dr. Jeffrey Friedman, stood face to face with me. And I didn't know that what he had discovered and injected into rodents, making them slim, was what I had harnessed that did so much more that hadn't and wouldn't be discovered by science for quite a while. But fast forward to today, the foremost clinical expert, who was also one of Anthony Robbins' top doctors, has said he's the #1 leptin clinical guy, said I'm the #1 practical expert on this. And I've led 116 groups on that, and fertility clinics, stem cell doctors, and much more are recommending what I do.
Thank you, Kat. Let's see, I think, Robert, are you there? Can you share with us, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you?
Well, there's no Robert, there's Joel Wallach, and Joel, he was on.
Is Joel Wallach there?
I'm not on the panel.
No,
how about Susan? Is she part of the panel?
No, the only one part of the panel is Nick, yourself, and Kat, and Robert. Joel. Joel was on, and somehow he said he got thrown off. So I'm on the phone with him now.
Okay, well, we'll tell him we love him and we would like him to come back. And I promise we didn't throw him off.
Joel? All right. Well, when he comes on, I'll let you know.
Well, in the meantime, Kat, can you just explain very simply again the master hormone that that you've been helping people to try to regulate in a more functional? Could you just kind of talk about that for a minute?
Sure, thank you. It's circulating from the white fat cells, and the bigger people are, and more leptin they tend to have. Even though the controversial fact is that generally, when your leptin is high, you're sated. You're not hungry. The problem is when you constantly, just like when we constantly spike our blood sugar, the receptors for insulin lose their ability to receive it. Same thing happens with leptin. Most of those receptors are in the hypothalamus. And so this is something that can be done very quickly and layered over pretty much any dietary approach. You're going to change your macro ratios, and the further metabolically challenged, if your parents were both diabetic and you're a large person, for example, your threshold for having your insulin and leptin spiked is lower. But within any framework of dietary philosophy, if you can get yourself leptin sensitive again, you are going to suddenly have your satiety signal working for you. You're not going to be addicted to anything. You're going to have deep wave sleep, even if you haven't slept more than 2 hours in your adult life. But the point is regaining sensitivity, and it happens very quickly.
Thank you. Did Joel, was he able to join us?
Not yet.
Okay, let's go back to Nick here, because I know he's an expert in optical microscopy using, I believe, phase contrast and dark field. I don't know if he's using bright field, but I would be surprised if he's not. But maybe you could just talk about a little bit, share with us blood microscopy and why that's relative today, particularly in identifying things like what's in vaccines or what's inside. Why is the blood should I say unlikely or is likely to be in a pathological blood state?
Well, you bring up a great point, Dr. Robert Young, and that is that blood morphology, when you examine it under phase contrast, it makes it really clear that you can see the different elements in the blood, specifically even bacteria. Obviously, viruses are smaller than the perception at 6,000 magnification. So we also have dark field, and I do use of looking at what's called oxidative stress, free radical damage. Heaton Lagarde were the physicians of President Eisenhower, and they passed on the technology and the readings to Dr. Bob Bradford. And I trained with him and also Dr. Phil Huxter from Michigan, and continued my research for 45 years, looking at literally thousands of people's of blood samples. And the reason I could look at thousands was because even for Tony Robbins, when he had his first event with 1,000 people at Master University, I hired 14 technicians. We actually got the samples on each person and put them in groups of rooms and circled the images that we saw. And I interpreted and explained over a 3-day period where we tested 1,000 people, retested them 9 days later. I published my PhD thesis on this. And, you know, a good study is with 25 people. We did 696 people for this study. And so what we observed is that an individual's lifestyle, their diet, their exercise, the foods that they eat, the herbs they consume, the amount of daylight they get, believe it or not, which affects their circadian rhythms, the hormone balance, which now we know of a new novel group of hormones, which has actually been around for quite a while. They're called peptides. And there's beta-thymosin, which builds the immune system to incredibly strong levels. So when you're looking at the blood, you're really basically recognizing if there is a viral load, there is some belief that we have a condition where we can see certain things in the blood that shows up. And in terms of pathology, are we seeing certain things in those who are vaccinated and those who are not? That's the big $1 million question. And furthermore, are these people who are vaccinated, are they actually protected at a higher level than those who are in the unvaccinated population? And the reality is that we know and we see the evidence that people's immune system, which is obviously a rather complex situation, is in a condition of flux. And that is when you're introducing certain RNA factors to alter the genetics of individuals, and you think that somehow that's going to hyper accelerate the immune system. You see, the immune system is very delicate, right? We have inflammation and we have the opposite. And so the body can overreact, autoimmune conditions, or it can deal with inflammatory situations on purpose. So you don't want to hyperdrive the immune system. You want it to rise to the occasion at the appropriate time. And more importantly, every study I've ever reviewed, when you shoot a substance into the body and you think that that's going to create permanent immunity, we know for a fact that's why these boosters are being launched, because the individual really reaches a much higher level of natural immunity, because these microbes have to enter through normal vector points, through, believe it or not, into the nose, the mouth, or the little ducts of the eyes. When they get into the body has a whole set of systems. It has systems to prevent, even in the mouth, saliva, in the gut, it has acidity. It has various layers to protect us before it even launches what's called the B cells. And so these B cells can produce over 1 billion antibodies to specifically handle that specific virus or bacteria. And so knowing this, that we have this amazing immune system, you'd have to have over 1,000 different vaccines, because the mutations and the changes are so rapid that the reality is one single vaccine is a ridiculous belief that that's going to protect the masses. And then they talk about herd immunity. Really? Herd immunity? Herd immunity, they're trying to say if we just vaccinate everyone, we're going to be immune. The truth is that true herd immunity occurs within the populations of any animal, including humans. And when we develop this stronger immunity, then we do have the ability to protect and pass on, believe it, even it's believed somewhat generational to the next family members. So I think the beauty of the immune system is so sophisticated. The lymphatic system is more extensive. And Dr. Robert Young, you talk a lot about this. And of course, we look at this. Joel Wallach's been studying epigenetics for years. And of course, Kat James, you're looking at these hormonal levels, but the reality is the body must work in kind of a homeostasis, help heat up the immune system, and it helps you to fight at the highest level and defeat these invaders of the body. But don't forget, we have more viruses in our body than human cells. We have more bacteria than human cells. So there is some kind of a balance that's necessary. We actually need viruses to survive. And that seems very peculiar to most people thinking who are germ phobes. Oh my God, I got to wash my hand every time I shake hands with someone. I got to, if someone breathes on me, I'm going to get sick. Really? You have so many microbes and bacteria in your body that if that were the case, you'd be dead a long time ago. You'd be like a little bubble baby who maybe you were not exposed to anything in your environment. And one day, 15 years later, you come out of the bubble and you'd probably die because your immune system would be so weak.
And Nick, Dr. Joel Wallach is here.
So Nick,
I'm here.
We have a wonderful man who has dedicated his life to helping others and has served humanity in all parts of the world. His name is Dr. Joel Wallach, and I would like, Joel, if you could take a minute and just tell us a little bit about you and how you're doing. We want to know that you're okay, and how are things going in your life, and what are you doing during this very seems to be challenging time?
Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't know what happened. I just went away, but then I came back, so here I am. Thank you so much. And in June, I'll be 83 years old. Most people think I'm in my 50s when they look at me. And I don't have any infirmities whatsoever. I do have an injury, okay, but which occurred many years ago, but I don't have any diabetes or high blood pressure or heart disease, or I don't have any arthritis. I don't have any lung disease. I don't have any IBS. I don't have any of that stuff, because those are all nutritional deficiency diseases. Every one of them are a nutritional deficiency disease. My thesis of 5,000 pages, 20,000 autopsies, $25 million NIH grant, is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. It was the beginning of Epi Genetics. Okay, it sold for $25,000 per copy. And I'm very, very proud of that. W.B. Saunders printed it as a textbook, but nobody's going to spend $25,000 for a book they're going to read in their car. And so we came up with a book. It was just a summary of that 5,000 page thesis. It's called Epi Genetics. Now, prior to Epi Genetics, and that's a bestseller, and there's a CD that goes along with it. And prior to Epi Genetics, I wrote a book based on my autopsies, 32,000 autopsies. It's called Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen, the book, and Hell's Kitchen, the CD. It goes back to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882 on Pearl Street in New York City, in the bluff overlooking the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. I guess before I go into that, I should tell you, I have a degree in agriculture. My major is in animal husbandry and nutrition. My minor is in field crops and soils. I got a degree in veterinary medicine. I have a degree as a naturopathic physician. I have 3 postdoctoral fellowships, which amount to over, $10 million between the 3, represents 1,700 autopsies in kids under the age of 10. And so these are all published and so forth. Very, very proud of that. And again, getting back to the story, the thing that makes me different is all this basic training. And I'm the guy who got rid of cystic fibrosis, supposed to be the most horrible of birth defects, because it's really just a nutritional deficiency of 2 different nutrients. One, which was the killer, caused a lung disease, which is usually what killed them. And the other caused a disease in the liver and the pancreas. Got rid of that through a grant, okay? And I got rid of muscular dystrophy. I was working with Jerry Lewis, okay? Got rid of muscular dystrophy, and they fired, the Muscular Dystrophy Association fired Jerry Lewis and shut down the telethon because we showed that muscular dystrophy was not genetic. It was a simple nutritional deficiency disease. And we were taking kids, of all ages, and just in weeks, they don't have muscular dystrophy anymore. And then I
let's review about the virus and the vaccinations.
Okay, that's one of my
future, not the past.
Okay. Well, that's my favorite subject. I was in the military, of course, for 27 years, 7 years in the Army and 20 years in the Air Force. And I get 10, 12 vaccinations every year in one day each, for 27 years. And so I'm not afraid of vaccinations. Vaccinations in of themselves have a purpose. Now, you have to appreciate that vaccinations do not kill viruses, bacteria, fungus, or yeast. They alert your immune system to the bad guys' DNA and RNA. So when the bad guys show up, your immune system sends out the white blood cells and the antibodies and go to kill the viruses and bacteria and so forth. So there's separate things going on here. And people get confused. They think that the vaccination kills the bugs. Vaccinations do not kill the bugs. They alert your body to the presence of the bugs. Okay. And so then you're responsible for sending your immune cells, your white blood cells, and your antibodies to go kill and eat the viruses and bacteria. Now, there's two things that have to be done to make that happen. Number one, you need to be taking the 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 minerals, 3 fatty acids, because your bone marrow, which makes the white blood cells and the beta cells, which was very nicely talked about, and the antibodies, all these things will kill the viruses, bacteria, fungus, and yeast. But if you're eating gluten, wheat, butter, and oats, you can take all the supplements you want. You can take everything you want orally, and you're not going to get much results. And these are the people who are having failure, quote, of the vaccine, unquote, because they get vaccinated. The vaccine does what it's supposed to do. It alarms your body to the DNA and RNA of the bugs, but your body cannot respond when the bug appears because you've been eating oatmeal for breakfast every morning for your life. You've been eating flour tortillas for lunch every day, chicken noodle soup, or you're having pancakes and waffles for breakfast. You're drinking beer made from wheat, okay, all that kind of stuff, gluten. And so the failure comes in because you can't send out your antibodies and your white blood cells to go kill and eat the viruses. Now, they've been alerted, but they can't do the job without the nutrients.
So, Dr. Joel, thank you so much. I wanted to bring Kat into this discussion too, because I would like to know about wheat and gluten. What is the connection with gluten and wheat with the hormone leptin?
I got to tell you that I don't deal with it much because it's long gone, and I think that when people become sensitive to leptin, it modulates immunity. It's the great modulator. So it is the balancer, even of hormones. But in literally people's allergies of all kinds seem to stop. But it doesn't. Sometimes they're not leptin sensitive yet, but all they've done is take that out. And they're not almost allergic to almost anything if the sugar is down. So sugar down, gluten down. What I do is observational. So 116 groups over 22 years living along with them. And I just look at symptoms and outcomes and then blood work, doctor's blood work. And it can't happen if gluten is in there. That's as technical as I can get about it.
That's
so
beautiful.
Let me go back to Joel because, Joel, I have a question. I know you're famous for a tape that you did many, many years ago called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. I would like to ask, do doctors lie still, or is this still going on? Is this a problem? I just want to know if is there a Dead Doctors Don't Lie #2, and what is the relationship to what is going on in lying as it relates to the so-called novel coronavirus or SARS COVID-2? It's kind of a lengthy question, but maybe you could address that.
Okay. Well, you've asked pertinent questions, and of course, the thing that goes on with the gluten, you have to appreciate a normal small intestine. When you open it up at surgery or autopsy, it looks like a shag rug. It has those finger-like villi in there. Makes a very, very irregular surface because of these finger-like villi. And when you're eating gluten, just after 90 days of eating gluten, it'll turn into a plastic tube. You lose 98% of your absorptive surface. So even if you're taking in the nutrients, you can't absorb them efficiently. You're only getting 2% of what you take in. You're going to be like these kids with asthma at 3 years old. You get these kids at 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, they're getting ruptured appendices, which is gluten. Irritable bowel syndrome is gluten. Lupus is gluten. Celiac disease is gluten. Crohn's disease is gluten. All these respiratory things are gluten. Okay. because they shut off the food supply, the nutrients that are necessary for all these cells and tissues and organs to work, including the immune system. And so this is how gluten damages you. It has many chemicals that actually kill the cells that line the intestine, kills them, okay, very quickly. And so people say, well, I only have gluten once. Yeah, well, what about the rest of your family? Well, I can't stop them from eating Wheaties and oatmeal and flour tortillas. Well, do you use the same washing machine? Yeah, well, you're getting cross-contaminated in the washing machine and the food preparation surfaces. Even if you just get contact with gluten once a week, that's enough to kill you, okay? When you look at the countries overall, people in Asia outlive us by 10, 15 years, or their life expectancy is 10 to 15 years longer than ours. It's not a genetic thing, but it's because they eat rice and sweet potatoes and corn and seaweed. And then you look at Europe, they have the worst of the life expectancies because they live on nothing but wheat, barley, rye, and oats. They drink nothing but wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Okay. And so this is why Europe has a very, very bad life expectancy compared to Asians. It's not a genetic thing. It's a dietary thing. I always tell my patients, okay, eat like an Asian. Rice. Now for this morning for breakfast, I had 3 poached eggs for breakfast with butter. I had 2 big ice cream scoops of wild rice steamed, okay, with some bell peppers in them, and some mushrooms. I also had some tuna fillets packed in water, okay, and let's see here. Oh, I had 2 of these 4-ounce cups of gluten-free and sugar-free yogurt, and then of course I had all my supplements.
You had all this for breakfast?
That's correct.
You get all that?
I'm just going, wow, I got full about halfway through.
All day for me.
But since you brought food up, I would like to know what Nick had for breakfast. I'd like to know what, if I might ask, Pat, what did you eat for breakfast this morning in relationship? I mean, do you have? I mean, I agree with Noel, with Joel that diet is about 90% of the problems that create a lot of these symptomologies. 5%. I do have to define epigenetics just for those who maybe not that word, but the word epi means outside the genetics. So basically it's the study of the environment outside the genetics.
Yes.
And so
if I may, this is very important. You hit the nail on the head. And the reason why the word epigenetics came along was, again, because of Edison. When he pulled that switch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, September 4th, 1882, what happened was by 1900, we're looking at 18 years later, everybody in the industrialized world has switched to electricity from wood stoves and fireplaces and fire pits. And the wood ashes were the fertilizer for our gardens. Wood ashes are 98% minerals that the tree sucked up out of the ground and 3% carbon. And then grandma would take a quart a day of these wood ashes and put them in our food as spices, but we're also getting the minerals from the wood ashes in our food. But when we went to electricity, all that source of minerals went away after thousands of years of using wood ashes as fertilizer and spices and sea salt and all that kind of stuff. It all went away because of electricity. So all of this, Edison is the cause of all these problems, because nobody thought to replace the nutritional parts of the wood ashes when we went to electricity. And so this is why you have to supplement.
Thank you, Joel. Nick, and then we'll hear from Kat here, because you all have such wonderful things to say. Nick, go ahead. Why don't you share with us what your show looks like? A couple of recipe books.
Yeah, I'm the author of several gluten-free, oil-free, sugar-free, plant-based whole food recipe books. And I want to say you can be plant-based and be gluten-free, and you can also not be fat-free. I said oil-free. Oil is highly processed. There's no
omega-6, yeah.
Yeah, there's no purpose to be consuming all these oils, whether they're plant or animal.
Seed oils.
What did you have for breakfast, Nick?
I'm right now. I'm noodling on some oranges and grapes. I had hummus with some chili salsa, and I had bok choy which was just slightly steamed, and some whole natural potatoes and peppers, chilies. And I've probably had most every morning. It's not your typical what was mentioned that most people eat for breakfast by Joel. It is oftentimes a very large amount of fibrous foods. You know, our primitive relatives ate over 700 different plant fibrous foods. And so that helps the gut, the biodiversity. Every plant food fiber has a different effect on the gut biodiversity. We're just starting to appreciate this, even though I had worked with Dr. Dennis Burkitt in the turn of the century in 1978, who had brought out that most cardiovascular disease and conditions related to lack of fiber. The less fiber, the smaller the poops. The more the fiber, the larger, the more frequent bowel movements, because you're getting rid of toxins out of the body. You're balancing your hormones, and you're replacing very important hormones in to help with the mood and the brain and the immune system. So I think the important things, I always ask myself the question, does this food have fiber in it? And if I'm taking a bite of something, I don't want it to take up space entering my body unless it's fulfilling a high nutrient density. Sweet potatoes are amazing. There's cultures that live on purple sweet potatoes and so forth. The longest lived people in the world, if you look at in Okinawa, they eat a lot of purple sweet potatoes and oranges, but they don't just, they peel it, but they get the white part of the orange because that's where the bioflavonoids are, the very complex vitamin C, not just vitamin C itself. So you really have to think in terms of the fact that I was eating carrots last night. And I do agree with Joel. I think the rice is a much better choice over the gluten-based to almost all of these plant-based foods. So you really have to make intelligent decisions and follow a recipe book like I have that Tony Robbins used for his actual people attending Master University, How to Look Great and Feel Sexy. This book was published in the year 1994 when I was first working with Tony. This book, Simply Healthy Cookbook, is the revised, updated version with hundreds of tasty natural recipes from international cuisines, because you know what, the cultures that live the longest, we really have to look at what they eat. And unfortunately, media has distorted what a diet is. We're all conditioned that it's okay to eat processed foods, soda pop, and junk white foods, and all these things that are loaded with oils and grease. I went to an Indian restaurant in Las Vegas day before yesterday. I was there, and I asked them, can you prepare to order? And they said, yeah, we make everything to order. I want my chickpeas and vegetables made with little or no oil. I really don't want this massive amount of oil, because when I look under the microscope and I do a lipid panel simultaneously, I can see massive amounts of triglycerides, and triglycerides desensitize insulin. And Kat, you talk about insulin, but this desensitization means that the insulin can't do its job to push the nutrients into the cells to generate energy. And so if you're blocking it with massive amounts of fat and oils, and look at how obese most people are, then it's not just that oil, the fat you eat turns into fat, but when you eat nuts, seeds, avocados, olives, there's fiber. It slows the absorption of that fat. They're very complex omegas that we need. I rub oil on my skin. Bernardo Lopello, I learned from him. He lived to an age of 115. And it's interesting that he rubbed oil on his skin. He rarely used oil in his diet. He used it in a cold press to press garlic to kind of get some of the nutrient density from garlic, the benefits of garlic. But the truth is that we get all the fats we need by eating whole natural foods. Most animals, Joel will agree with this, they eat foods in the environment. If people go to the zoo and start feeding them the human food, the monkeys and the animals get sick, because human food is not human food any longer, right? We've got to get back to the whole state, and then supplement it with supplements and herbs and spices and things that really bring to life. That's what I eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I make love at least every morning and night, because my honey knows that I have to have a strong immune system.
Kat, can you add to the nutritional side? And then if you want to add to any comments of what Nick just said.
Yes, there's so much, there's so much truth there. Sorry, am I interrupting someone? Sorry.
No, what did you have for breakfast?
Oh, I had, I think that I would be better served to answer some other things. I have a secret ice cream that I grab when I go to pickleball, but there's no lactose in it. And yet you wouldn't completely say there's no dairy in it, but it's amazing. And you can't really do better as far as nutrient density than grass-fed red meat or eggs. And zinc likes fat. There isn't, when you're leptin sensitive, a lot of anything. I so very much agree that oils, the omega-6 oils, and avocado is better than grapeseed, even though grapeseed is a great high temperature that doesn't peroxidize, but it's so much better if you use virgin coconut oil or butter or ghee, because A, it's not going to peroxidize, and B, you don't have high omega-6, and you'll shorten your lifespan with omega-6 oils. This is not and you're not going to want to eat certain amounts of fat unless your body is acclimated to it. And if you go through a period where you stop the sugars, you can have the most incredible changeover in your microbiome that's even possible. You'll heal your gut as well. Leptin will do that. And that's the other thing about gluten, of course, is it completely destroys the gut. But it's not about eating tons of anything, because when leptin sensitive kicks in, you're actually eating what a human being is supposed to be eating. And fiber is absolutely huge, but there are fibers that don't spike blood sugar. A person like me with a history, genetic history of the eating disorder, obesity, and my one of my parents, etc. We have a lower threshold at which our blood sugar spikes. So I can't eat the same thing that Dr. Nick would eat at all. And it would be bad for me. Fasting started my eating disorder and starts a lot of eating disorders. And the calorie restriction studies, the recent ones, are showing that a lot of that benefit from calorie restriction is avoidance of carbs and protein. You don't want excess protein. mTOR, you're hearing about this pathway that decides whether you're going to cell replicate or remodel. That's how you cheat nature and live longer, is remodeling. You don't want a lot of cell replication once you've hit adulthood, which is why bodybuilding is kind of a losing thing for your health, and pro-cancer, et cetera. So you don't want high amounts of protein. And so what are people to do when they're told, oh, get healthier? Okay, they're going to stop the processed food and they're going to lower their sugar intake. But what goes up? Not enough fat. Saturated fat raises HDL. Grass-fed saturated fat is amazing for fertility, your brain, your skin, your eyes. You need red meat, has carnosine, choline, all sorts of your B vitamins. And it's just incredible. Triglycerides is mostly elevated triglycerides. It's not a product of fat. It's a product of things that raise your insulin and starches and sugars, and the small particle, the only cholesterol worth paying attention to. Now, although if you want to raise good cholesterol, there's number one way to do it is grass-fed saturated fat. But the only cholesterol that is a problem is small particle type B, LDL, and guess what raises that? Carbs and starches and sugars.
Well, so thank you, Kat, for sharing that. Maybe you're probably wondering what I had for breakfast. I don't know, maybe Mark is. But
we want you to talk more, Robert.
Yeah, well, I talk too much sometimes, but don't get me going. But bottom line for me is, I do have a confession. I've been a plant-based vegan since 1972. And when I say vegan, I've been a plant-based alkalarian, which is different than a vegetarian, but an alkalarian focuses on very specific foods. I'm not saying this, I'm just saying what I do, okay? So what I had for breakfast, which is not a grain, it's a seed, it's called buckwheat. And so I steam buckwheat groats, and then I add avocado, and I add heirloom tomato, and then I also steam broccoli. And I do love bok choy in there, but I'll steam vegetables, or I'll have a vegetable soup for breakfast, which I had yesterday. Today I had the buckwheat with the avocado and the tomato. And I really feel peaceful, after eating that. It just feels right for me. You have to try it. And I also believe in a concept, which you may or may not agree with, but I believe in eating less more often rather than more less often is a better way to go. Having specific meals like breakfast, lunch, and dinner doesn't serve you if you eat less more often, so that you're nursing, kind of grazing like the animals do. Maybe Joel would agree with this, but so I believe in this principle: less is more and more is less, and less more often is better than more less often. And when you practice that principle, you don't overeat. but you're literally getting a little bit over the day. And you probably should consider, for those who are listening, to drink more than they eat, because the body, particularly when Joel was talking about the desensitization of the appendages in the small intestine, the intestinal villi, and the damage to the cells, food needs to be in a pureed alkaline state at a pH of 8.4 in order to produce these embryonic stem cells, which actually is produced in the crypts of the small intestine. So when the body is producing stem cells to produce erythroblasts, that all takes place in the small intestine. In order for that to happen, the ideal pH is 8.4. It's very, very difficult to get it up there. But guess what? You have glands and organs that help. You have a pancreatic duct, you have cover cells of the stomach, you have the gallbladder, all secreting substances that, guess what, has a pH of 8.4. And so, you know, when we can move more towards the foods that are high water content, high chlorophyll content, that easily will liquefy through mastication, you know, and if you can't chew or you don't have teeth, then get a good blender, you know, get a good juicer, because the body cannot deal with solid food. That's why we eliminate it. We eliminate food that cannot be liquefied. And when we chew our food well, or if we can't chew it, we blend it well, and we eat foods that are high in chlorophyll, high in water content, that liquefy well. When that food
I
think we lost
the sound.
Could I comment on that, Mark, while we're getting Dr. Robert back?
Yeah, I think maybe he has a bed.
Okay. I just want to say how it's cooked is everything as well. So for example, if you take an egg and it's dry and bouncy, and you've done a fried egg and it's and you've got crispy, you've got glycation, the body hates it. The body hates that. And meat that's overdone, and all the meat studies virtually are not done on grass-fed, but also done on improperly cooked and processed. And even the acidity and pH that has been attributed to meat, for example, if you look at some charts, really detailed charts, you look at the uncooked and not honey roasted and not nitrosamine packed, etc. They have barely any kind of acidity to worry about. It's sugar that is the big issue. And if you eat green vegetables with your meat, there's just virtually no worry about it. And you need a certain acidity. And I really wanted to hear Dr. Wallach's response with regard to, because people digest like a charm, and lifelong reflux sufferers don't have it. There's no more bloating, there's no more farting. And yeah, you can have konjac and all zillions of kinds of fibers, but they don't have to be starchy. I want to give it to Dr. Wallach.
Okay, thank you for all. And you each and every one of you are saying very, very true things. And but there's a couple of pieces missing here that need to be said. Thank you for the opportunity. Number one, nutritional minerals make up 2/3 of the 90 essential nutrients that all vertebrates, including human beings, need every day. 90 essential nutrients, 60 of the 90 are minerals, individual minerals. When people do great things for humanity, they're called the salt of the earth, because people know that salt is good. You have chief cells in your stomach, which convert sodium chloride salt into hydrochloric acid to help you digest things and absorb minerals. Now, minerals do not occur in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth. They occur in veins like gold and silver. And you could be eating the same recipe as your twin sister or twin brother, who may live 5 states away, and they may be getting 28 minerals, and they're doing very, very good. That's only about half the number of minerals they need, but they're doing better than you, who are only getting 3 minerals. Okay, because the soil in which your food was grown in didn't have the minerals in them. Plants don't make minerals. Now, they can make vitamin C, and they can make beta carotene, they can make B vitamins, but plants do not make minerals. Okay, and they do not occur in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth, so you have to supplement. Now, U.S. Senate Document 264 came out in 1936. I thought it was 1916, but it was 1936. U.S. Senate Document 264. It came out and said that the American soils are totally depleted in minerals and cannot support healthy life anymore. That's U.S. Senate Document 264, 1936. Okay, and that goes back to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, when Thomas Edison pulled the switch and set off the electricity thing, and people stopped using wood for fuel in the fireplace, in the stove, and the heaters, and the fire pits to burn trash and everything. And so we lost that access to those minerals. So you have to proactively, consciously make that part of your daily regimen. And so that's why we did this, and we came up with a program. We have a program for kids, tastes good. It's called Kids Toddy, like a hot toddy. Kids Toddy contains 100 nutrients in it, including all 60 essential minerals. Okay. And then we have for adults, we have the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. It has 215 nutrients in it, including the 60 minerals. And so these are things that we should just, for instance, would you put dirt from Texas in your car, gas tank, instead of gasoline to save oil, to save money? I mean, you can save a lot of money by putting dirt from Texas in your car's gas tank instead of putting gasoline in there now. It's only 10 cents a quart for dirt from Texas. No, an idiot wouldn't do that to their car. You're going to put high quality gasoline in your car. Same way with the oil in your what do you call it? The oil pan underneath the engine. You put oil in there. You don't put dirt from Texas in there to save a little money. Well, when you just eat well, that's not enough, because you don't know where those plants came from. You don't know what were in the soil that they were going to pick up. If there's only 3 nutrients in the soil, that's all they pick up. You can't tell by looking at them or tasting them whether they have 3 or 15 or 25 or 30 or 60. And so the only way you can, and we learned this in the agricultural industry, because we do not have health insurance for livestock. And we have life insurance for expensive racehorses, but we don't have health insurance for cows and pigs and sheep and chickens and turkeys and things. And so we learned that if you don't want the veterinarian out to your farm every day going broke because all your animals are sick all the time, you've got to give them the minerals. There's the trace mineral salt blocks, the minerals in their alfalfa pellets. And that's how I found out about minerals when I was 9 years old. They were going to put me in an institution. 20 doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I had very violent Tourette syndrome. I was hurting other people. And to make a long story short, as they're packing up my clothes to put me in an institution because 20 doctors couldn't figure it out, what I said was, how come the animals eating the same food I'm eating, they're not acting like me? And I said, well, they're eating everything I'm eating. No, they're also getting alfalfa pellets with vitamins and minerals added to it. So I threw the Cheerios and the Wheaties out to the chickens, and I started eating their alfalfa pellets with milk on it for breakfast in the morning. In 3 days' time, after 5 years of getting worse, I was cured in 3 days' time, just eating the alfalfa pellets with the vitamins and minerals in it. So that's when I learned this when I was 9. Yeah.
Awesome.
Joel, Nick was holding up a couple of books I think you might recognize. Could you just comment on those really quickly? This one's called Epi Genetics, and the other one's called Rare Earths.
Okay. Yeah, those are two of my books. Yeah. Yeah,
right.
2 of my books. They're bestsellers.
Are you recommending that those who are listening and around the world to get these books?
Forbidden Cures.
Yeah, there you go.
Forbidden Cures.
Yeah.
And Epigenetics.
Yeah.
Epigenetics, the death of the genetic theory of disease transmission. Really well-written books, Joel. You put your
thank you. Into this. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Let's see here. Well, epigenetics, of course, I was actually fired from the Yerkes Primate Institute. That's one of my primate monkeys. I found the first non-human case of cystic fibrosis in a monkey, and I sent the slides around to 5 medical schools. Yeah, and these are monkeys for the space program. I was a pathologist for NASA, and I knew it was cystic fibrosis, so I sent slides to about 5 different medical schools, but I didn't tell them it was from a monkey. I just said, here's some slides. I think this is cystic fibrosis. What do you think? And they all sent back to pathologists. Yeah, this is a classic example of cystic fibrosis. And then I said, well, these are for monkeys. And at the very least, we found at least the way to get an animal model so we can study cystic fibrosis. I was in every newspaper in the world every day for 3 months. I was in Time magazine. I mean, it was like crazy. And then when I told them it wasn't genetic, because I did biopsies of the 24 other baby monkeys in the colony that were getting the same diet, they hadn't died yet, and they all had cystic fibrosis. Okay. And I said, it's really just a nutritional deficiency. And they fired me. They fired me because everybody knew, of course, quote unquote, everybody knew, quote unquote, that it was a genetic disease. And so that's when I went back to school and became a naturopathic physician, because I knew they wouldn't let me in medical school. So I went back to become a naturopathic physician so I could treat people. And so that's how I got into treating as a veterinarian, treating people, was because of that baby monkey that had cystic fibrosis. And I did the same thing with Jerry Lewis and all these kids up in Utah and Idaho with the Amish communities, gluten with muscular dystrophy. And we were curing them right, left, and center by getting them off of gluten and getting them on the 90 essential nutrients. And Jerry Lewis, he talked to the doctors who said, we don't know why, but these kids don't have it anymore by biopsy. They're normal now. And he took all these papers that we gave him to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and he'd been doing a telethon. He'd raised $2 billion over 20 years on his telethon. They fired Jerry Lewis and shut down the telethon because he told them it wasn't genetic. Muscular dystrophy.
They probably thought Jerry had lost his mind. But
that's true. That's what they thought.
Well, Kat, I know you've got something on your mind, and you just want to share it with us right now.
You know, I didn't have anything specifically, but I just have I just want to go sweep through a checklist. I think everybody should too, because you all have things you just want to get out there. And I just wanted to say that autophagy is something we want our body to do. We want our body to eat the cells at either the intermittent fasting, leptin sensitivity that takes care of autophagy. You don't want old cells to be there. mTOR is really emerging. I mentioned it as a top marker, a top goal to not set off, to suppress mTOR. You don't even want to know what it stands for. It doesn't matter. It's just a pathway that decides whether you're going to divide and be pro-cancer after adulthood, or whether you're going to cheat nature. And you got to watch. That's the protein sensor. So you don't want to get too much protein. Fat is necessary if you're going to cut sugar. And by sugar, I don't mean just sugar from processed foods. I mean things that turn to sugar. And people seem to have these widely varying thresholds at what's going to cause them a problem. A sweet potato could cause a problem in a very metabolically challenged person. So let's see. Fat fasting is something to consider once someone is fat adapted. But if you're faster, it will affect nothing and set you back not even an iota if you have fat, because that's not going to interfere with the whole fasting goal whatsoever. So you want a balancer, and the great compass of the body is leptin sensitivity. It truly is 20,000 studies, and it affects every system, and it balances your hormones. It balances every system, even how much thyroid hormone you're going to make. It resets the adrenals. And as far as MS and lupus and every autoimmune thing, it's astounding. Reversal of dementias. It's the great neuroprotective. It brings back fertility. And that's just bringing back sensitivity. And you cannot have diabetes once that happens. And even with type 1, you're going to see needing way fewer insulin units. And you're going to see much easier management of insulin, even in type 1. And there's no willpower. That's the thing. And so if you're someone who has no discipline around sugar, the microbiome impacts that. So get your microbiome corrected. There's a zillion great fibers that should be for people with metabolic issues, not the starchy fibers. And but it's amazingly no more period problems, prostate problems. Every prostate cancer, I've worked with 5 doctors have said it went to insignificance. I make no claim, it's pure coincidence. But it's just, if you look up leptin and proliferative cancers, you get this compass working, and everything else won't continue to be a Band-Aid measure. That's really what I wanted to say. Thanks for the opportunity, Robert.
Well, Kat, one thing, and maybe Nick can answer this too. What about aspartame? Well, how does synthetic sugars play into?
They all act differently. We know sucralose, massively disturbs the microbiome. I can't even keep up with the negative things. Aspartame, I think, was cancer and brain problems, and the studies just show they backfire. And so different things like monk fruit, and for some people a little stevia. But I find even if you over sweeten with those, and when you become leptin sensitive, your tastes dramatically change, and everything suddenly tastes too sweet and smells sickening. And so if you resensitize yourself, your body will say no to these things, but definitely no to artificial sweeteners. And I do hope we do a little round robin on what's going on today. And I know Nick started us on that.
Well, Nick, I do have a question about the excessive clotting, and particularly, are you seeing any carbon clusters or which may be graphene on? Are you looking at the blood of vaccinated folks, and what are you seeing? Are you seeing something different that you haven't seen before?
I've initially, because my patient population is pretty attuned to understanding that their body's immune system is dependent on them mastering how to optimize their nutrients and the 7 pillars of health. However, unfortunately, I have patients who are forced to have a vaccine to keep their job. And they're asking me, please, will you do my baseline test and recheck me after I have this vaccine that I'm almost, obviously beyond their permission, but they're being forced, they're going to lose their job, so to speak. And I have to say that I am seeing some peculiarities. At first, I saw people who were vaccinated and I was seeing some abnormalities. And I said, well, this is not fair because I don't have the pre-test. I don't have the before after. And then, like I said, I started getting these patients who are coming in now after they have been forced to do vaccination. And unlike Joel Wallach, I agree with him on many, many things, but I have never in my life had a vaccine, nor will I. And the truth is that all my children and my friends, except for one, my son Lance, who's 35 years old, who suffers from brain damage from being given a vaccine in the womb at birth. And when he came out, he had so much mercury load. That vaccine was banned after it was given in 1986 and 2003. And there was multiple lawsuits. All you have to do is look at all the lawsuits against vaccine companies. And it's the government, you and I, the taxpayers, that pay for the adverse reactions and the death. One of the greatest baseball players in history died within 2 weeks after his vaccine. Just start looking at the incidences of death, and me even talking about it. I learned to shut up in most social media because I was being censored everywhere when I was just simply bringing out the obvious. So when I look at blood, I'm looking to see, is there changes in the blood morphology? Is there alterations? Is there presence of something more obscure and strange? And I have now a 6K camera, a 4K camera. I went from 1080 DP, so I can see a much more higher resolution on my microscope system than about anyone out there doing microscopy. It took a little technology to figure out with my team how to do it. And so we're looking for these things because I see some of the other doctors online sharing these rather abnormal growths. And I've pleaded with some of my colleagues, can you please get me a vial of vaccine? Let me look at what they claim they're seeing. And with my technology, I can see these things and I'll be happy to report them. But apparently it's almost impossible to get a hold of these vaccine vials. There was a truck that fell over with a load of vaccines, and they came in and they confiscated everything and surrounded the area for fear that anyone would get a hold of these vials. Now, why is that? I mean, are they that toxic that they have to wear full suits to protect themselves when they're picking this stuff up? I mean, the reality is we don't know, right?
Yeah, we actually do know. You know, so and that work has been published, and your hunches here can be substantiated from the work of many from around the world, from New Zealand, from Australia, from Portugal, from Spain, from Italy, also from North America. I actually have a document that's been published. It's close to 100 pages with over 100 micrographs in the study of 5 of the inoculation vials, and you can come to your own conclusions. But it's horrifying when you're identifying specific things using scanning and transmission electron microscopy on top of phase contrast contrast, dark field, and bright field, and then validate the electron signature with energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy to identify the actual contents of the ingredients that are non-disclosed within the Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and also the Sinovac. In fact, the flu vaccine that has been developed, called, which is being used, is Risovac, which has ricin in it. I don't know if you know about ricin, but you definitely don't want to come in contact with any amount of it, because it is a bioweapon. I mean, they name a flu vaccine after a mycotoxin that could actually kill you. So it's amazing that what we're looking at with these inoculations, and a lot of people don't understand this, is that the first inoculation, based upon the batch and lot numbers which we have access to, that 100% of all the injuries and deaths associated, that was brought up by Nick, are associated with the injection, and they're only counting those after 14 days. So if you die after the inoculation or a week after inoculation, they don't even count those.
Right.
And those are only the ones that are being reported.
Yeah.
Okay. Under VARS, but it's which is vaccine adverse effects from the inoculation. So based on a study, they're saying approximately 1% are actually being reported to the CDC. So the bottom line is that the first inoculation, based on the evidence that we have of the ingredients, 5 to 10% of all inoculations in those 5 groups, 5 to 10% of them contain the poisonous chemical waste, including the parasite eggs of Trypanosoma cruzi eggs. The second one is at 25%. So you have a 1 in 200 chance of being inoculated with a caustic poisonous substance. Okay. The second inoculation, you go from 1 to 4. And the boosters, you're now 1 to 2, which means that when you're actually receiving the inoculation, the percentage of graphene, the percentage of aluminum, the percentage of titanium, the percentage of parasites increases significantly. And of course, when they inoculate that intramuscularly, that goes into the interstitium organ, which is the largest organ of the human body, and transports via nucleic acids. Okay, we all know about the RNA attachment to the hydrosol capsule, which is coated with polyethylene glycol, which contains, guess what, folks, 95 to 99% graphene with parasite eggs. That is being driven by nucleic acids that are specific to specific glands, that 50% of that material goes to the reproductive organs. It literally, using radioactive tracers, you can follow from the injection site where the contents of that injection go. 50% to the reproductive organs, 20 to 30% to the heart, and the rest to the brain. So this is a targeted bioweapon that's being driven by specific nucleic acids coming from specific genetic markers. In the nutritional world, in the nutraceutical world, we call these protomorphogens. We would use specific cells, genetic marker cells, to drive specific nutritional ingredients, vitamins, minerals, and herbs to specific areas of the body. So when a woman receives the shot that contains the bioweapon ingredients, the poisonous ingredients, the likelihood of, after the first inoculation, is 1 in 200 injury. Okay, if she's pregnant, she has a chance of losing the baby, a miscarriage, 1 in 200. The second one is 1 in 4. The booster is 1 out of 2. Okay, And if you have the actual number, if you've been inoculated, you'll have a code, and that code is the lot number code that identifies what's in the inoculation. So it's very, very important to understand that 100% of the inoculations do not contain the same ingredients. That's very important. Okay?
Can I add to that, Dr.
Yes.
Robert?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. You know, you saw, was it Michael Yeadon's presentation? He showed the graphs and of all of the companies, it's never been seen in any kind of flu vaccine or anything that all the deaths and injuries happen sporadically, all in the same lot numbers, you know, and there's even a website, howbadsmylot.com, something like that. I wanted to just mention that the swabs, there's a Johns Hopkins technology that was found where they implant little grabbers in the swab, Theragrabber, I think, and they have the technology to do things with those swabs as well. We didn't even get into PCR, which I'm sure we all agree is just trash. Why they're still even using it, I don't know. But I wanted to just mention also what's coming, and also, it's a little out there, but self-assembling technology, nanotechnology. I just don't put it.
This is covered in electrochemical sensors based on carbon nanotubes, sensors and actuators.
And is the graphene part of what's needed? And also 5G interaction. You listen to Thomas Cowan.
Well, 5G it depends on the frequency. So it's a pulsating. It's a combination. It's a pulsating frequency that may be 3 pulses at 2.4 gigahertz, 5 pulses at 8.4, and one pulse at 41.3 gigahertz.
And we're going to see VAIDS roll out, vaccine-induced.
We have 5 more minutes. Thank you.
Oh dear. So here you see some of the 5G and nanotech COVID jabs. You can actually see the graphene biosensors, and they are self-organizing.
This is about AI. This is about control. The whole thing is, sorry, I just feel like you guys know this, you know, look up the World Economic Forum, at the Great Reset, etc. And if any of you have any good news, anything, I think people are totally waking up. I think actually this people versus the people thing is wearing a little bit thin. I think
you can read an article on my latest article, Dr. Young shares new COVID vaccine and blood findings, the self-assembling and the pulse radio waves, microwaves that are being used to go from this, you know, to this.
Yeah.
You know, so this is self-organizing, and this is what happens once you've been inoculated with the graphene. This then connects you, and this is all patentable. This has all been patented. In fact, Microsoft has the patents on the connection. Once you've been inoculated, you'll receive a barcode, and so they can track you from your cell phone, from cell power towers, from your own computer, and from the super cloud, the superconductor.
And so the fourth one is coming. The fourth vaccination is coming, you know.
So these are the ways. Internet, these are just different tiers. But anyway, you can find and read this article at drrobertyoung.com. I've got 320 articles on this very subject, and hundreds of interviews, not just on what is in the vaccines and what they cause and the outcome or the intention of these bad actors is to literally in fact, there's a bill coming up. It's called the Cure Act. Are you familiar with the Cure Act that was signed into law in 2016 by Obama? $1.5 billion has been dedicated. You know, it should have come under DARPA, but it's been moved from DARPA. It's been moved to the pharmaceutical companies themselves so they can operate without oversight.
Nice.
So now this new bill that's it's called the Cures Act, which was signed in 2016. It's very important that you become aware of this. because this is going to give more power to the pharmaceutical companies to carry out what DARPA was supposed to be doing or is doing. They're having the pharmaceutical companies. So you need to know what's going on. I don't believe we need to fear Russia. I don't believe we need to fear China. We need to fear Washington, D.C. and what's going on back there.
And involvement, over-involvement in it is what I think we need to fear, over-involvement.
You know what I'm going to do? So what I'm going to do, because I think it's really important what you all have to say. So I'm going to move, instead of ending it now, I'm going to move you to room 19, all of you. Whoever wants to continue the nutrition discussion, which I think a lot of you do, because we're in the middle of this amazing
Well, I
day.
think people want to ask questions.
That's what I mean. So go to room
Yeah,
19.
I think we should open it up to questions now. I
Right.
think
And
we've laid the foundation. Let people
Robert-
ask their questions.
Robert and Nick and Kat and Joe will be in room 19. So just follow them there. In this room, Rika Kaplan is going to be on what does cryotherapy feel like and what can it do for me. Then also what's going to happen now is Judy Satori has a special event, Becoming Authentically You, Access Your Divine I Am Soul template. And we will move the people that paid for Judy, we will move you to Judy's room. And what else we have going on? And then there are free psychic readings in room 2. So that's it. So Vicki, if you can move the panelists to room, what did I say, 18 or 19?
19, I think you said.
What about those who joined us? There was about 40 people that were in the room. Can they?
Yeah, so room 19, everybody else can move themselves.
Okay, room
Okay.
19.
Room 19.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
you, Mark.
So we
All the
can-
best. Have a wonderful Sunday.
You're the best Sunday ever. Ciao.
I think we're still waiting to be moved.
Yeah, we're waiting to see something pop up that says click here.
Yeah, there we go. There.
Oh, man. Okay, so that's great. So hello, so Rika Kaplan is going to be talking about what does cryotherapy feel like and what it can do for you.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Mark. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
So I am a cryotherapist. I'm a holistic wellness practitioner. I incorporate numerous modalities within my heart-centered sessions. I use cryotherapy to reduce inflammation. Inflammation is kind of the name of the game these days. Cold is a natural therapeutic and has huge list of benefits, including immune function and improved cognitive function. I offer numerous treatment options. I'm also a Reiki master in energy healing. And I studied with shamans in Peru. I am a student of the Akashic Library and Yotalan's holonomic healing. So I've been in the psychic room this afternoon, helping some people identify and remove blockages. But one of the main things that I've noticed with most people is inflammation. Inflammation is indeed the name of the game. When I got into cryotherapy, I was a chief operating officer at a finance firm. So I had this, corporate job. And when I was furloughed from that about 1.5 years ago, I was looking around for what is it that I could do. And I got into cryotherapy because I took one treatment session in a whole body unit and I felt amazing. It changed my metabolism. It changed how I felt. So I started looking at it. But now that I've been practicing and doing cryotherapy for people for a little while, The most asked questions is, what does it feel like? What does this feel like? So what I'm going to share with you today, give me one moment. I've got,
we lost you.
I should be sharing my screen about now. So you should be able to see me and my screen.
Great.
Okay. So here is the uses of cryotherapy, what it's all about. I do body sculpting, I do cryofacials, I do cryoaesthetics and pain management. So when we're dealing with inflammation, typically there's traumas and dramas that attach to different parts of your body, and they'll create pain. And what the use of cold does is it reduces that inflammation and alleviates the pain. The body sculpting also, it's freaking amazing. It works after one session. I do Frotox facials instead of Botox. It's an alternative to an invasive procedure. So this is really a holistic healing tool that I have used. There are many physiological adaptations that occur with cold exposure. The use of cold exposure to promote good health is an ancient practice. It dates back many centuries. In modern times, cold exposure is used primarily to reduce muscle soreness and promote muscle recovery after physical activity. So we know that most athletes, they do that cold bath that after a game in order to, for muscle recovery and for injury healing. So that's what most people identify cryotherapy with. However, there are numerous studies out that cold exposure also may improve glucose and lipid metabolism, decrease inflammation, enhance immune function, and improves cognitive performance. Yes,